Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Matt Rhule, the Nebraska Cornhuskers, is starting to get it going on the recruiting trail in the 2026 cycle. Now, throughout the summer, I've expressed some concern in terms of what the talent acquisition process has looked like for Nebraska, along with many Nebraska fans too. Look, I'm on Twitter. I'm on the message boards with y'all. I got family members who are Nebraska fans. I've seen Nebraska fans as well express concern. Here's what I'll say. Matt Rhule, when he took over at Nebraska, was very clear in terms of the blueprint of how he wanted to maximize this program. Hey, we go and recruit the right guys out of high school, and we're going to develop them into really good football players. We are going to be a developmental program that's worked for Matt Rhule at all the other stops he's made at the college football landscape. It's what's made Matt Rhule one of the better coaches in the sport. Now, when I look at player development, I think Nebraska's doing a very, very good job. One of the things I was very vocal about during the 2024 year is, look, was it perfect? No. Did I think, positions like the offensive line show massive growth during the 2024 year? Yeah, I absolutely did. I think these players are getting better at this Nebraska program. Now, when it comes to talent acquisition, I think there's room for improvement, specifically in terms of the balance of, hey, how many kids are we taking out of high school and how many kids are we taking out of the transfer portal? Because you go back to 2025 and say, hey, brought in 20 kids at the high school ranks, brought in 17 in the transfer portal. I don't think that's the vision that Matt Rhule has for this program. And that's not me getting up here and saying, hey, don't use the transfer portal. Nebraska has used the transfer portal, at least in my opinion, very effectively. But if you want to be a developmental program, you want these guys in your program for 4 to 5 years. Getting guys in the transfer portal, you ain't going to really get that. And so, and then a couple of days ago, before Nebraska kind of caught some fire here, Nebraska was sitting with less than 10 commitments in the 2026 cycle. I think the good news for Nebraska fans is that it sounds like Nebraska is starting to get some real momentum that I want to talk about. Landed a few commitments yesterday that I'm monster fans of. We got a few more that Nebraska could be trending for as well. Got a lot to talk about over the next 10 minutes. Fired up to get into it. Before we do, and as always, to the Nebraska fans, please let it fly in the comment section. Like, am I being a little bit too critical of Nebraska? Maybe. Would love to hear from you guys. Because, hey, if there's one thing I've learned about doing this the last couple of years, ain't many fan bases that are more dialed in to this program and have really valid, strong opinions than the Nebraska fans. Would love to hear from you guys. Appreciate y'all rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's get into it. And let's start with the commitments that we saw yesterday. None bigger, in my opinion, than Claude Mpouma. This kid freaking rocks. He's been one of my favorite prospects for the last couple of months. I've talked a lot about this kid, 6'7", 310. He is very new to the sport of football. Came to the United States with aspirations to be a basketball player. Played his first year of organized football during his junior year. You turn on the film and say, it is incredible how comfortable this kid looks playing the tackle position on a football field for a kid that's barely played this sport. He's got really nice athleticism. He's got a tremendous frame, and then he's really naturally powerful. Now, look, are there some things that he has to clean up? Yeah, plays a little bit high. Probably doesn't bring his hips in as much as you would like. The raw power, the horsepower this kid has for someone who's 6'7", 310, he's not, doesn't have a lot of bad weight. He's not overwhelmingly big, but he's really powerful. He's a really good athlete. It's not going to be year 1, year 2 for a kid like him. You talk about year 3, year 4, you could be talking about one of the better left tackles in the sport with this kid. And look, my big take here is you can't find the kids with this kind of upside in the portal. I think this is a guy that I think has a very good chance to be a franchise caliber left tackle over the next couple of years for Nebraska. Now, another offensive lineman who I sneaky do enjoy as well, Leon Noil Jr. from Louisiana. Very lean kid, 6'4", 200 and maybe up to 70 pounds. On the junior year film, he is very clearly a lean cat, really good athlete. And I talk about this all the time. Hey, I'd rather have these kind of guys than the guys who go 6'5", 350. Hey, we can put weight on this kid the right way and maintain the athleticism that he has. He is very light on his feet for a big body. He's one of the better athletes on the offensive line that you see. I think you also get some versatility. Look, I think as an athlete, maybe not necessarily the prototypical frame of a tackle in the Big Ten. I think he's more than a good enough athlete to play tackle. And look, we just learned with Will Campbell at LSU, I care less about the frame and more about the athlete. If you are light on your feet and you have a strong anchor, you're going to be just fine at tackle if you're a good enough athlete. And I think Leon Noil is probably athletic enough to make it work at tackle, but you're getting a guy that's versatile, that can play just about every spot on the offensive line. Put weight on him the right way, develop that overwhelmingly. You want a little bit more physicality. If there's one thing that leaves a little bit to be desired, which is to be expected with a prospect like this, it's, hey, I want to see impose your will a little bit more all along the line of scrimmage. If you can get that out of this kid and put the physicality and weight on him the right way, I think he can be a really good football player too. And I say it all the time, I'd rather put weight on a kid the right way than try to force a kid to lose 30 pounds and try to develop an athlete. You got an athlete. Now you just got to get him in the weight room for about 18 months and get that weight up, get that physicality up. Two really nice pieces for Nebraska on the offensive line. We say this all the time too. Hey, you want to have good offensive line play, you damn well better be sure getting these guys out of the high school ranks, because guess what? A guy like Elijah Pritchett, one, we have question marks about how good is he going to be because it wasn't great at Alabama. He's also going to cost you a pretty penny. If you want good, reliable offensive line play, get these guys out of the high school ranks because it's hard and expensive to get those guys in the portal. Now, two names to monitor over the next couple of days. Let's start with Larry Miles making his commitment later today. I'll just put it as a Ja'Cory Barney 2.0, in my opinion. Florida kid with Florida speed, playmaking ability with the football in his hands. Just like Ja'Cory Barney, he's not the biggest wide receiver out there, and he's not necessarily the fastest in a straight line out there either. Just a electric factory with the football in his hands is probably the best way to phrase it. Very similar to how we talk about Ja'Cory Barney. Ja'Cory Barney is a guy that, hey, Nebraska hasn't had a ton of those guys where you're legitimately holding your breath when they get the football in space. That's what Ja'Cory Barney is for Nebraska. That's what I think Larry Miles can be for Nebraska as well. Nebraska had a lot of success with Ja'Cory Barney as a freshman. I think they're going to have a lot of success with him over the next couple of years. Maybe Larry Miles, kind of the next one up for this Nebraska program. Here's another one that I like, and these are the recruiting wins I want to see more from Nebraska. Going down into the state of Texas, going head-to-head with a program like Michigan, going head-to-head with a program like the Texas Longhorns, and winning out potentially with a very versatile front seven defender. Calvin Thomas, 6'3", 210. He's a leaner off-ball linebacker, but has a really good-looking frame. A guy that I think can play off-ball linebacker. Also wouldn't be surprised if he plays a little jack as well. He's very comfortable coming off the edge and rushing the passer. Nebraska's always bet on these kids. As long as Matt Rhule's been here, say, hey, give us the good athletes. Even if there's a question about where they're going to play, we'll take the athletes. We'll make them good football players. We'll put them in positions to be successful. Calvin Thomas, a guy that, in my opinion, too good of an athlete to not make it work in the Big Ten. It was a slow start for Nebraska in the 2026 cycle. I think they still have a lot of work left to be done, but you're kind of happy with how it's starting to feel going into the month of July, especially with a lot of big decisions coming up over the next couple of days and weeks. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. We will break down the commitments as they come in. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.